and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. Hi, Fiona.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
As always, aren't we?
As always. Not always, but
no,
yeah.
well, true.
So today we're talking about an exciting, lovely topic, which is traveling.
I know, I love it.
Yes. So we thought, as you might know, if you're one of our regular listeners, you might know that we've been both fortunate enough to travel for a bit earlier in this year. Finally, after all the lockdowns and whatnot, we could go overseas and visit family. And so we thought it might be a good idea to share how we both managed our photos while we were away and on the road and traveling, and maybe not always had good internet connections and things like that. So we thought we'd just share our personal experience, how we managed that and how we did that.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing that one of the most important things that we have when we travel is take photos.
Yes.
So
can you remember how many you took?
I took a few. Oh, that's a really good question now. I know what I ended up with at the end, but that's not the actual, because I delete as I go, which we'll talk about in a minute. A few thousand at least.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, was it good?
I mean, I was away for 6 weeks.
You were away longer, that's right. But it was a few. But that's okay. It's more what we do with them, what we end up with, how we can look back on them, and all of that kind of stuff. So
let's just bring in something else before we actually start.
Sure.
I think Fiona's going to tell us first what she did on her trip. But we just wanted to sort of remind people that recently we've decided that we don't want to monetize or, put ads in our podcast. And you can go back to our episode where we talked about that, where we talked about a few changes that we have made. But instead, we've introduced a donation option. So for those who've donated, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate it. And we just wanted to say that again, that we've got that option if you feel like, this is valuable what we're doing, which we hope it is for you. That's why we do it. And, just to cover the cost and that we can continue doing the podcast. Keep it running.
So no obligation, but just a thank you to those that have. Yeah.
All right. So tell us what you did.
Photos on the go when we're traveling. So I have a fairly simple system. I don't carry, or I didn't this time, my laptop with me. So I really mainly use my phone. So my phone is my camera. I do have a digital DSLR camera, but that's for my photo my scanning. So I actually kept that here.
Right.
Tried to travel light. But so just use my phone. I've got a really good phone, camera on my phone. So I was happy with that. So what I do is when I take photos on the phone, I always have them in my iPhone. I use my iCloud is turned on. So that is a backup of sorts, obviously, but just remembering that is not considered, if I've deleted it, it deletes off everywhere in the iCloud. So once it is turned on, it doesn't mean that it just goes up into the cloud and then it's safe. So I have other backups on the go as well until I come home. But one of the things I do when I'm traveling is I like to try to gather the photos from others, if other people have taken photos on that at that time, like if there was a particular event, like just a gathering of other people, and I really wanted to grab some of the photos from other people. I try and do that on the same day if I can, because sometimes people's phone times are different, and when you import them into your library, it can change the times and things like that. So I just make that a very intentional effort to do that at the time, and grab those photos and then bring them into my iCloud.
So how do you ask them to share? Do you use AirDrop if they're iPhone users?
If they're iPhone users, otherwise I'll do email or text.
Okay.
If it's something bigger, we might do a shared album or something like that, even on a Dropbox. Sometimes I've done that. I did that recently with a family celebration for my dad's 80th. But when I'm traveling and things like that, I'll just have, or I'll actually grab the phone.
Yes.
Politely. And I'll get the ones I want. And to say, I'm just texting this to myself, or messenger them, or, whatever they use as their main. And then I delete my favorite. I make my favorites each day, and I delete the ones. I do a quick delete of the ones that I know I'm not going to keep. So if I found my favorite, I like to do that right on the spot or at the end of the day. I just find that for me it makes the transition back home and the project that if I'm creating something so much easier. And I like to do it pretty much straight away, because I look at the photo anyway and to see if I've got the one I want. And so it's just a quick flick, and then I'll either select the 5 that I didn't want and keep the 3 that I do. And then out of that, maybe I will, if I know it's an absolute favorite that's going to go into something that I'm creating, I always favorite right there and then. And that's just it's a habit. It's a habit you get into. So I use iCloud, and then I also just upload those favorites to Dropbox. So I haven't had, because if I didn't have my computer with me, and I don't have my external hard drive hub, I do it that way. And I just know I've got another backup, and then I create albums. And then when I come home, I transfer them all onto my hub.
Right.
And I continue with my regular maintenance that I do that way.
So did I hear that right? You only upload your favorites to Dropbox?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just the ones that I've loved hearted, and that I absolutely want, because it's something, it's really as a sort of a stopgap holding point until I come back. What I will do is I do carry an external hard drive with me. And depending on where I'm going and who I'm with, I will, if I can use their computer, I will do a transfer over that. But I chose not to bring my laptop this time. So, Okay. So that's it. So it's it's been a while since I've traveled. So I was like, I've got to practice what I preach here. So it was lovely. And obviously the sharing and the creating things like that has been just, very grateful that we've been able to travel. But what about you? What do you do? Yours is a bit more involved than mine.
It was a bit more involved, but probably mainly because I took a camera.
Okay.
And not just phone. So I was actually traveling to 3 different countries, and I was on road trips and other holidays. So yes, a lot of photos. And I did use my iPhone, but I actually mostly tried to use my real camera, because I did take quite a few scenery shots because I was traveling on that road trip. And I just thought, the quality is just so much better. Doesn't look like it on the little screen. It looks all fine on the iPhone, but when you then later compare, it's a different world. So I was really consciously using my camera mostly, but also sometimes took a photo, basically an identical shot with the phone, because I wanted to share it maybe later that day in our family WhatsApp group or something. And then I had it on the phone and I could share it easily.
Okay.
Because, of course, on the camera, it lands on the SD card.
Yes.
So I can't easily share from there directly. And that's why I chose to do that. But then oftentimes after I would have shared from the phone, I deleted it because I knew I've got the better shot on my camera.
Oh, that's dedicated.
So, yes.
I like it.
It is. I'm like, it might sound a bit complicated, but actually for me, I found it's easier because then I'm not under pressure to necessarily download my camera photos and to have Wi-Fi. It's like too hard. So let's take it easy. Do one shot on the phone, share that, and
I love it. And I think, and this is the beautiful thing about talking about this, is that it's so different, and everyone, people will probably get some ideas going, I didn't even think of that. What a great idea. If they've got a really nice camera as well, and to do that. Because sometimes you do want to do that. Yeah. I love it. Okay.
And so I had my iPhone, I had my camera, and I also took my Mac notebook.
Okay.
So this made it easier in some ways. And I usually don't take a notebook when I travel, but because I was away for 6 weeks, which is quite a considerable amount of time, and I also needed to check emails and stuff, I took that with me. And so I also knew that while we were on the road, that a good Wi-Fi connection is not always guaranteed. So there were days that we had no internet at all or extremely slow internet. So I knew that, backing up to the cloud or sharing through the cloud is not always easy or possible. But I did try. So what I did on a daily basis, not always managed to do it every day, but mostly yes. So the iPhone photos, they automatically went into iCloud photo library. And when I turned my Mac notebook on, I have my photo library on that. And when it has internet connection, it will sync. So those phone photos automatically land on my Mac. At the same time, I would take the SD card out of my camera and copy those photos that I had taken that day into my photos library. So I have that basically
in iCloud
on the Mac.
Oh, okay.
So, but because this is connected through my iCloud,
yes,
and if the internet was good enough, eventually those photos from the camera landed on my phone, right? Because it's all synchronizing. So I basically gathered everything on my Mac, and sometimes it would be a few days where the photos were in that library, but they didn't pop up on my phone because the internet was so bad. But at least I had a copy because I keep the original on the SD card. And then at least I had a copy on my Mac as a backup. And eventually I could see them on the phone, and, I could share further from there if I wanted. I just like to have that sort of little system going. And it was handy. And what I did the same thing as you did, like every day, once I had gathered them. And I also did what you said, once my husband and my kids joined us, I would get their photo or the few that I wanted. I do the same thing, look at their photo. I want that, and airdrop it to my phone, and there it is. Magically, it's in my photo hub.
Love it.
So easy. And then every day I would delete what I didn't want to keep, and I try to be quite rigorous. But look, sometimes having a bit of distance in time is actually a good thing. So I certainly did the first big cull pretty much immediately. I also created albums in my photos library because I was traveling to, I was 3 weeks in France. So I had an album that would say, France, and then I had another album from a different trip. So I would put them in those albums to have a bit of an overview of a better structure, even though it was only temporary. But that helped. And then same as you did, once home, or maybe before that, on that Mac, I used Backblaze to back up my entire Mac.
Yep.
So when I did have internet connection, it would of course also back up. So I felt like, not much can happen to my photos really.
Yeah.
And it was all good. And when I came back home, I did the same. I called further, and there it was good to have a bit of, a few weeks in between, and then you're a bit more like, I don't really need that one. That can go. Especially if you look at hundreds and hundreds of photos, it's just, there's no point to keep them all. So, and then curated them further from there, like, that just come into my normal photo management flow. And so
that's great. So one of the things that is obviously very consistent with what we're both saying here is being able to have good Wi-Fi. I was in with family, so I was able to rely on that when I was doing my, the backup and the transfer. But it is definitely a variable when you're traveling, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and maybe it's worth mentioning that we've once done an episode, I believe it's episode 16, where it's called Keep Photos Safe While Traveling, and we talk about different options there, especially if you don't have Wi-Fi or internet connection. Because depending on where you go, that's a reality. We can't rely on having a Wi-Fi. For both of us this time it was easy, and we did have that connectivity most of the time, at least. But if I went to travel in outback Australia, that's not an option. So there would be a different solution, and we talk a bit about all those in episode 16. So there's solutions for you.
Yes.
if you don't have an internet.
Yep. We talk about a range of different things. So have a listen to that one. That's really good.
But we just thought, this time we're not sharing all the different options, but just sharing
just what we've done. From a practical point of view. So I hope that helps. Window into our photo lot. That's exactly right. And then of course then the fun part is the sharing, the creating, and even we've talked about, we've got an episode coming up as well just about what to do with those photos, what's important, and the stories. We've talked about this in other episodes as well. I think it's just the background behind that, and to capture that, and I think a bit of distance from that time, or even straight after an event, those memories and thoughts, just to jot them down. And I think they're so powerful to look back on in many years to come.
Absolutely. Actually, can I mention something? It just comes to mind. We have had an episode, I don't know which number it was, but we'll put the link in the show notes, with Katie, talking about story jotting. And I've just received news that she's actually starting a new course. So talking about story writing, that might be something that you want to look into. I've done the course with her and I can highly recommend it. So absolutely, the storytelling is important, not just the photos, and we'll link to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a look and see. And I think that's so true, because it is definitely powerful, and to learn how to do that, it's really helpful. It's just it gives us just that I'm looking forward to our following episode as well, that we will share. You'll see coming up in the episode after this one, and that really is the power behind stories with our photos. It's really important for many reasons, and so I think especially when we've traveled and things like that too, I think it's a great thing to be aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that was it for today. Short and sweet.
Yes.
And we've just found it's episode 57, Story Jotting with Katie.
Yeah.
So check that out if you want to tell that story with your photos.
Yeah, exactly. And have a look at the links in there for the courses that Katie's got coming up too.
Because that's actually my next step. So currently, I've managed the photos, and I traveled with Mum for 3 weeks. She's writing the stories that goes with the photos, and we'll marry it all up. And we'll have a beautiful photo book. And this is one, I'm definitely going to go back to what I've learned from Katie to write those stories. Yes.
That's great.
And I can't wait to hold that book in my hands.
Oh, special. Very special. Very, very special. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It's been hopefully a helpful podcast episode for you guys, and we would love to hear what you guys do with your photos when you're traveling. If you've got other tips and things that others can learn from as well, just maybe go onto our website with the wish list there and just pop in some details, and we can share that out, or you can go onto our social media. As we've mentioned before, we're not as active there, but still very engaged, and would love to hear what you've got to say, and we'll share that through as well. So thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear any review or read some feedback from you, and head on over to the podcast page and maybe have a listen through any of those other episodes that we've shared that might be helpful for you. Wonderful. Well, I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I am Chantal from Photos in Order. Thanks as always for tuning in and being with us, and happy photo organising.
Bye.
Bye.